The winner of the 2025 Heisman Trophy is Fernando Mendoza.
Only one quarterback in college football history won the Heisman Trophy, led an undefeated team to a national championship.
A sensational season propelled by a thrilling catch and unthinkable win over rival Penn State.
And did it all just 1 year after transferring from a program the football world had already written off. That quarterback is Fernando Mendoza. Born in Boston, raised in Miami, passed over by every big program in the country coming out of high school. A two-star recruit who bet on himself, transferred from Cal to Indiana, and ended it all by taking down Miami for a national championship. And now he is the #1 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, headed to Las Vegas.
The Las Vegas Raiders select Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana.
This is not a story about talent. That was always obvious. This is not a story about a kid who was handed anything. This is a story about a quarterback who was told in every way possible that he wasn't good enough and chose every single time to prove them wrong. This is how Fernando Mendoza went from overlooked to the #1 pick in the NFL Draft. Fernando Gabriel Mendoza V was born on October 1st, 2003 in Boston, Massachusetts. He grew up in Miami, Florida, the son of Cuban immigrant grandparents who left the island in 1959 following the Cuban Revolution. His family's roots trace from Spain to Cuba to the streets of Miami. 4 grandparents, all born in Cuba, a family that sacrificed everything for a new life.
We actually took a trip back to Cuba, my grandfather and Alberto and I. And we went back, we saw some cousins who had ended up staying in Cuba, and just saw the community as a whole, and it was a very transformative experience.
This is a Cuban tradition. We do it every Christmas, any big holidays, any big parties. It's a great way to feed a crowd.
It smells good.
That heritage mattered to Fernando. He has talked openly about how his Cuban roots fueled his and his brother Alberto's competitive fire.
I definitely thank my parents and my mom for that because it rose our competitive levels and rose our resilience.
Definitely a lot of fights, physical and verbal, but it really brought us that much closer.
She also told me that you guys used to dress alike. How fun.
Oh my God, don't get me started with that. I used to hate when she dresses up the same. Like, I don't want to dress like him, I want to be my own person.
People will be like, oh, the twins, try to joke. I was fine with it because I'm not a big fashionista.
And in a sport that rewards the loudest recruiting profiles, it would be that quiet, relentless drive that carried him when the spotlight wasn't there. Because early on, there wasn't much spotlight at all. Fernando attended Christopher Columbus High School in Miami. He was a Silver Knight Award nominee, a Miami Herald Scholar Athlete finalist, and graduated with a 4.86 GPA. Brains were never the problem. Football recruiting was. As a sophomore, Mendoza wasn't the starter. He wasn't even second string. He was the third string quarterback on a team that won the Florida 8A state championship. His coach, Dave Dunn, remembered one moment that hinted at what was coming.
And they just wanted to talk about the future of Columbus football. And the thing that struck me the most was Fernando showed up as a sophomore. It was freshman year going into his sophomore year of high school with a notebook and a pen.
In a game where the starter went down with a minute to go, Mendoza stepped in cold and threw his first pass for a touchdown, put them in position to win. By his senior year, he had earned the starting job. He was completing passes at a high rate, winning games, and showing every trait all scouts should want. But the COVID pandemic hit during his most visible recruiting summer, limiting scout access.
During COVID, senior year, we lost in the state semifinals. I thought it was a pretty good high school career. I was satisfied at that moment. And coming out, the only committable offer I had was Yale.
So Mendoza did what he had to do. He went on what his coach described as a Campapalooza tour. 18 camps in 25 days just to get in front of evaluators. Not because the phone was ringing, because it wasn't.
His recruiting was minimal at best, and very few schools were looking at him.
I think I was like the 134th quarterback, or like coming out of my own class in high school. And so I was raw. I mean, that was a true ranking. Like, I was a raw prospect. That was terrible.
The result? Fernando Mendoza graduated as a 2-star recruit. 2 stars for a quarterback who would go on to win the Heisman Trophy and the national championship. The one school that came through, the California Golden Bears.
And then I get a call And I'm like, okay, like, what's this call? And it's the Cal coach saying that their quarterback flipped to UCLA on signing day, and now they're scrambling all ahead. They're like, oh shoot, like all the quarterbacks already signed. Where do we go? And since legally you can sign people until like February 3rd, they still like had an option to sign me. And the only reason the signing period's so above.
And you had no contact with them
No
prior
contact,
to this point.
West Coast. So I was like, let's go. Ended up going well. They offered me a scholarship and I signed like 3 days later.
Wow, what a crazy turn of events.
Mendoza packed his bags, moved across the country to Berkeley, and got to work. In 2022, he redshirted, no snaps, just watching and waiting. Entering 2023, he was third on the depth chart. Through 5 games, he hadn't started a single snap.
So Fernando's kind of an afterthought, and it didn't stop him. He just was like, well, if I'm not going to get enough meeting time here, I'm going to go find it somewhere else. I'm going to go bug Coach Plow. It's like, hey, when can you meet with me? Well, I can't really meet with you until I'm done with all this stuff, but if you want to, I'll meet with you. Great, I'll be here at 9 o'clock. And he would come back in and we'd meet. He would never leave. He wouldn't let me leave the office. And then he kept doing that day after day after day. All of a sudden, the other quarterbacks aren't playing well. Hey, we're going with Fernando second half of the year.
Then injuries struck Cal's quarterback room, and they turned to the kid from Miami nobody had wanted. 8 starts later, Mendoza had thrown for 1,708 yards and 14 touchdowns at a 63% completion rate.
This kid's preparation is at such a high level. I've been very fortunate over the years to coach a lot of good quarterbacks.
All these plays and all these practices, these are just moments and opportunities for him to learn, and I think he really takes that to heart. And so as long as he continues to do that, I think the future is bright for him.
The coaching staff, the players, the trainers, everybody just has a positive outlook on this team. And we know and we strongly believe that the next upcoming years are going to be great years.
A year after that, in 2024, he won the starting job outright, threw for over 3,000 yards, engineered a 98-yard game-winning drive against Stanford, and led an upset win over Auburn. He had become the most efficient passer in Cal program history. The team went 6-7. The program couldn't keep up with the player. On December 11th, 2024, Mendoza entered the transfer portal. He was ranked the 3rd best quarterback available. And one program stood out above the rest: Indiana. Coach Curt Cignetti's Hoosiers were coming off the best season in program history. Their starter, Curtis Rourke, was out of eligibility. The roster was built, the quarterback spot was open, and Mendoza's younger brother, Alberto, had already signed with Indiana as a freshman. He had family in Bloomington before he ever took a snap there. On December 23rd, 2024, he made it official. Most of the country barely noticed. Indiana hadn't won a Big Ten title since 1967. They'd never produced a Heisman winner. The Hoosiers were a nice story, not a national title conversation. That was about to change.
I don't know that there is a ceiling right now. He's improved immensely, but as much as he's improved, he's got that much more improvement he can make this season.
The 2025 season opener against Old Dominion was fine, unspectacular, the kind of debut that gets a small blurb and gets forgotten. But then came week 2, 4 touchdowns against Kennesaw State. And then week 3, Indiana State, a 73-0 win. Mendoza went 19 of 20 for 270 yards and 5 touchdowns. He didn't even play the second half.
However, I think today was a little bit more of a complete game on offense. Usually, the first 2 games we had a little hiccup after we scored a touchdown or 2, but it was really good to see us, converting that 3rd and 11 where I threw a touchdown to Omar Cooper, and I think it was good to get over that hump.
Week 4 against 9th-ranked Illinois. 21 of 23, 267 yards, 5 more touchdowns. 5 touchdowns, 2 incompletions against a top 10 defense. The college football world stopped and rewound the highlight reel. Through the season, Mendoza became statistically untouchable. He led the entire country in passing touchdowns. He was first in passing efficiency, first in yards per attempt at 9.5. He had 6 games with 4 or more touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. He had multiple games with a 90-plus completion rate against Power 4 opponents, something no FBS quarterback had done in the modern era. The wins kept coming. Every week, every opponent: Iowa, Michigan, Michigan State, UCLA on the road. Indiana was steamrolling the country, and Mendoza was the reason.
For Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza looking. Buying time. Lets it go. He's out arms. Touchdown. Hoosiers. Who are these guys?
But one game rose above everything else before the postseason. Penn State on the road. With 1:51 seconds remaining, trailing 24-20, Mendoza took the field needing to go 80 yards to keep Indiana's undefeated season alive. What followed was 10 plays, 80 yards, and a throw to Omar Cooper Jr. that will be studied in quarterback schools for years. Indiana won 27-24. They called it a Heisman moment, and they were right. The regular season ended with 12 wins and 0 losses, Indiana's first perfect regular season in program history. And then came Lucas Oil Stadium, the Big Ten Championship. Indiana versus #1 Ohio State. On the Hoosiers' very first offensive snap, Mendoza took a hit that briefly knocked him out. The quarterback, who had beaten every odd, came back on the very next play. Down 10-6 in the third quarter, he found Elijah Sarrett for the go-ahead touchdown.
Touchdown!
With 2:48 left and the game on the line, he hit Charlie Becker for a 33-yard strike that iced it.
Charlie B!
Indiana 13, Ohio State 10, their first Big Ten title in 58 years.
And like you said, I don't think it was until World War II that IU's won their last Big Ten championship. And before the game, a lot of guys had a sour taste in their mouth from last year with the whole Ohio State-Indiana game and how Ohio State kind of took control of that game. And Coach Ignetti's messaging was, we belong here. We belong here. They might not think, people might not think on the outside, and we're the underdog, but we have nothing to lose, and we do belong here.
A week later in New York City, Fernando Mendoza stood at the Heisman podium, Indiana's first ever winner in 127 seasons of football. He received 84.66% of total possible points, the 7th highest in the history of the award. He appeared on 95.16% of all ballots, tied for second highest ever. And when he spoke, he didn't talk about touchdowns or rankings. He talked about the kids who felt overlooked. He said, "I want every kid out there who feels overlooked and underestimated to know I was you. I was that kid too." The truth is, you don't need the most stars, hype, or rankings. You just need discipline, heart, and people who believe in you.
This is an important one. I want every kid out there who feels overlooked, underestimated to know I was you. I was that kid too. I was in your shoes.
A 2-star recruit at the Heisman podium. But the season wasn't over. As the #1 seed in the college football playoff, Indiana's path through the bracket was dominant from the start. First up, Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Mendoza went 14 of 16 for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Crimson Tide, one of the most storied programs in history, held to 3 points on New Year's Day. Indiana won 38-3. Then the Peach Bowl against Oregon. Mendoza went 17 of 20 for 177 yards and 5 touchdowns. A 56-22 blowout. The Ducks didn't have an answer. Nobody did. And then came the night that will define a program forever. January 19th, 2026 at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida. Indiana versus Miami. The school that once declined to give Fernando Mendoza a scholarship, his hometown stadium, his hometown team.
So it didn't bother you when you walked on at the University of Miami and how sweet it is to defeat Miami in the national
Oh no, it bothered me. It bothered me. I'm not going to say I'm some type of emotionalist guy.
Hollywood couldn't write it this well. Indiana led wire to wire, but Miami never went away. Carson Beck kept the Hurricanes in it. A spectacular 22-yard touchdown catch by freshman Malachi Toney cut the lead to 3 in the fourth quarter. And then came the moment that will be replayed for decades. 4th and 5, Indiana deep in Miami territory, up 17-14. Coach Cignetti sends out the kicking team. Calls timeout, sends the offense back out. Quarterback draw. Mendoza takes the snap, finds the crease, bounces off defenders, and leaps into the end zone. 12 yards, touchdown. Indiana 24, Miami 14. A play installed specifically for this game. A call that required believing Fernando Mendoza would deliver in the biggest moment of his life. He did. He always does. Miami answered one more time, closing it to 24-21. Indiana's offense responded with 2 clutch third-down completions from Mendoza to Becker, 19 yards, then 19 yards again to set up the field goal that made it 27-21. And with 44 seconds remaining, Indiana safety Jamari Sharp, a Miami native himself, picked off Beck to seal it. Indiana 27, Miami 21. The first national championship in Hoosiers history, the first 16-0 season at the top level of college football in over 125 years. Fernando Mendoza, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion, offensive player of the game, became just the 18th player to win both the Heisman and a national title in the same season.
Let's give a round of applause for Fernando Mendoza. Winning the Heisman Trophy, first Heisman Trophy winner in Indiana, first outright Big Ten championship since 1945.
His final season stat line, 41 passing touchdowns, the most in the country. 48 total touchdowns, also the most in the country. A 71.5% completion rate. 6 interceptions across 16 games. A passing efficiency rating of 182.9, leading the FBS. AP College Football Player of the Year, Maxwell Award, Walter Camp Award, Davey O'Brien Award, Heisman Trophy, National Championship. In one season, at a school that had never won any of it before he arrived. Now let's talk about what Fernando Mendoza is as a football player, because understanding why the Raiders made him the #1 pick requires understanding what scouts fell in love with. At 6'5" and 225 pounds, he has ideal NFL size, but it's not the size, it's the processing. Mendoza reads defenses faster than virtually any prospect scouts had evaluated in years.
Fernando Mendoza, he's built like an NFL quarterback. He's got the frame, he's over 6'4", he's almost 6'5", he's almost 240 pounds. Obviously, he's got the accolades to him as well. Wins the Heisman Trophy, wins the national championship, wins all of the big games that you want to see.
He anticipates routes before they break. He gets the ball out on time, into tight windows, in rhythm. The ball placement, the touch, the velocity calibration, all of it is elite. He earned his undergraduate business degree from Cal in just 3 years. He's described as equally sharp on the field as off it. The kind of quarterback who walks into an offensive coordinator's meeting and doesn't just learn the playbook. He wants to understand why every concept exists. He does have real areas to develop. When flushed outside the pocket, his completion percentage dropped to 53%. Against true pressure, it fell to 50. He took only 3% of his college snaps under center. Those are the real hurdles the Raiders knew they were drafting into their building. But here is what scouts kept coming back to. Every time there was something Fernando Mendoza needed to prove, he went out and proved it. At Cal, they said he wasn't ready. He became their most efficient passer ever. At Indiana, they said he was inheriting someone else's program.
I was never really tall. I didn't have a growth spurt until later on in my high school career, and I wasn't very strong at that point in my career as well.
He won the Heisman. In the playoff, they said he hadn't been tested. He went 14 of 16 against Alabama, 17 of 20 against Oregon, and scored the decisive touchdown of the national championship game on a 4th and 5 with the title on the line. The developmental questions are real. They always are. But the foundation is there, and the Raiders decided they couldn't wait any longer.
I'm giving this pick an A+ because the Raiders have built the entire offseason around being ready for this guy. So job well done, and then finish the job here with an A+.
On April 24th, 2026, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the day had arrived for the Las Vegas Raiders to make the first overall selection in the draft, and they were about to make it official. The franchise had been searching for a quarterback for years. They'd had flashes of promise that never fully materialized. They'd cycled through starters, traded for veterans, hoped for answers that never came. The Raiders hadn't been to the playoffs since 2021. The silver and black needed something real. They found it. With the first pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Las Vegas Raiders select Fernando Mendoza, quarterback, Indiana. The same kid who ran 18 camps in 25 days just to get noticed. The same kid who sat third on a depth chart at Cal with no guarantee of ever seeing the field. The same kid Miami didn't give a scholarship to, and then watched score the decisive touchdown of the national championship on their home turf. The Raiders had spent the entire offseason building around this moment. They signed three-time Pro Bowl center Tyler Linderbaum to a massive contract, the biggest ever for a center in NFL history, specifically to give their new quarterback the kind of protection and communication anchor young signal callers rarely get. They brought in veteran Kirk Cousins to bridge the gap while Mendoza develops. They traded away Geno Smith to clear the path. The Raiders weren't just drafting a quarterback, they were building a foundation. New head coach Clint Kubiak had already given Mendoza his playbook weeks before the draft, because that's what you do when you know. You don't wait, you don't wonder. You get him in the building as fast as possible, and you get to work.
Love his athleticism, his ability to throw accurately down the field. He's very accurate, but at the end of the day, he's a bright, intelligent leader.
And for Fernando Mendoza, landing in Las Vegas with a franchise, a plan, and real infrastructure around him is the kind of situation every quarterback entering the league hopes for, and very few actually get.
I think it's a great situation for long-term success, but the success that Fernando's going to have is going to be directly correlated to the amount of patience that the Raiders need to have with him. The longer he sits, the longer he waits, the longer they wait until he's ready to put him out there, the better he's going to be in the long term. That's why I think Kirk Cousins is the short-term option.
He walked into hard situations before. Third string at Cal, transfer portal uncertainty, a new program with national title expectations on day one. Every single time he found a way to show the people who doubted him looked like they hadn't been paying attention. Everything he did at Indiana proved one thing. When the moment gets bigger, Fernando Mendoza gets better. He didn't just win games, he changed a program. He didn't just lead Indiana, he elevated them to heights they had never seen before. A perfect season, a Big Ten title, and a national championship. And now, the question becomes something bigger than college football, because the stage just changed, the expectations just changed, the stakes just changed. Can Fernando Mendoza do it again? Can he take everything he built at Indiana, the poise, the precision, the leadership, and bring that same transformation to the Las Vegas Raiders? Can he take a franchise searching for direction and turn them into something the NFL has to respect?
Oh, I love everything about his game. Certainly, his leadership is what stands out to me. It's his relatability to his teammates, and he's overcome a lot of things in his career. He's a Miami kid. Went to Cal, to Indiana, and then you go to a program that hasn't won anything in forever. And what he's done this season was so impressive.
Because we've seen this story before, a quarterback overlooked, doubted, passed over, who kept proving people wrong. But the NFL is different. The speed is different. The pressure is different. And now, for the first time in his career, Fernando Mendoza isn't chasing an opportunity. He is the opportunity. So now the question is simple. Will Fernando Mendoza become the quarterback who brings the silver and black back to greatness? Or will the NFL be the first place where his rise finally gets tested?